In Jericho Creek, some fires start long before a match is struck. You can feel them in the way folks look away, in the quiet that swells before something breaks. It started with fire, not the kind that dances pretty in a hearth, but the kind that eats wood like it's starved, the kind that turns night into a fever dream. Folks in Jericho Creek didn't scream, didn't run, they just stood there in the dirt, faces lit by the barn burning down to its bones. The name June was still glowing on the siding, carved deep like someone wanted it to outlast the timber itself. In Jericho Creek, you don't call evil by its name. You either bury it or you burn it. That's the way it's always been. I've seen that kind of silence before, how it wraps around a crowd, keeps folks' hands in their pockets while the world smolders. Maybe you've seen it too, the way people pretend not to notice when something's wrong, hoping it'll just blow away like dust. But Elias Boone wasn't built for pretending. He stepped forward through the heat and smoke, calm as a thunderstorm about to break, and with half the town watching, he said the one thing no one else would dare. "She don't sleep in there no more. She stays in the house now." You could feel it, the way air changes when truth walks in wearing work boots. A few folks flinched, others looked away. I swear, moments like that are louder than gunshots, because they strip you bare. And I couldn't help but think, how many times had June's name been whispered in the dark before someone finally spoke it in the open? Maybe you've known an Elias in your life, the quiet one who only breaks his stillness when something's worth standing for. Or maybe you've been the one waiting, hoping somebody would see the smoke before it was too late. That night, under the glow of a burning barn, it was clear. The fire wasn't the only thing catching light. Something else had just begun to burn, and this time, no one was going to look away.
A few days before the fire lit up the night, the stagecoach rolled into Jericho Creek later than it should have, its wheels groaning like they'd carried something heavier than freight. Nobody was waiting. Folks don't stand around for strangers anymore. She stepped down barefoot, skin baked under the sun, dress torn, the dust clinging to her like it meant to stay. One strap hung loose off her shoulder, showing a bruise the color of bad wine. Her knees were scraped raw, arms marked like someone's hands had dug in too deep. She didn't look up, didn't ask for help, just pressed her palm against the stage wheel, like it was the only thing holding her together. That was June Whitlow. Once the preacher's daughter, now something quieter, hollowed out, like a ghost still wearing its skin. I've seen that look before, on people who've been through storms they'll never talk about. Maybe you have too. Before she stepped into the doctor's house, she said it. 4 words that didn't rise above a whisper but cut sharper than any shout. Use me, break me, just move me. Words that don't come from nowhere. Words that carry weight you can't set down. Elias Boone saw her from the forge, the sun casting long shadows at his boots. He didn't move, didn't need to. Some men just know when something's been done wrong. He didn't knock on the doctor's door that day, didn't ask questions, but 3 nights later, a loaf of bread sat on her windowsill, wrapped in an old rag, and tucked inside, a single peach from his own tree, soft and bruised. It wasn't much, but in a town that looked away, it was more than anyone else had given her. And I think sometimes that's how it starts. Not with grand gestures, just quiet kindness left where someone hurting might find it.
Some nights in Jericho Creek are so still you can hear your own thoughts rattling. That's the way it was the first time June spoke to Elias. She didn't call out, didn't even move from her spot on the porch, just let her voice drift low across the evening air. "You gonna take your turn?" He froze. It wasn't the words themselves, it was the weight behind them. Like she'd said that same line too many times before, to too many men who never brought bread. I remember thinking,
There's a kind of tired that sits in a person's bones, the kind you can't sleep off. Maybe you've known someone like that. Maybe you've been someone like that. After that night, they didn't talk much. Instead, there were red ribbons, one on the porch rail, another tied to the old well. Some faded, some frayed, each one saying something without saying it out loud. In a place like Jericho Creek, silence can be a cage, but for June, it was the safest ground she had left. Elias never tried to fill that silence. He'd walk past the porch on his way from the forge to the well, nod once, maybe hand her a tin cup of water. She'd take it without meeting his eyes, and for a moment, the air between them felt steady. Like maybe they both understood the rules here. No prying, no pity, no pretending. I've always believed that not all bonds are built with words. Sometimes it's the steady rhythm of a hammer in the distance, or the way someone keeps showing up without asking for anything back. That's how it was with Elias and June. Two people carrying more than they'd ever say out loud, finding a kind of truce in the quiet. And in a town that liked to watch from a distance, that quiet between them was louder than any gossip could ever be.
It was one of those late summer evenings when the air feels heavy, like it's holding back a storm. June was sitting on the porch, same way she always did, quiet, not hiding, just there. That's when Tess Raymond came down the road, heels clacking sharp against the boards. Tess had a way of pulling her dress tighter when she talked, like she wanted her words to sting just as much as her perfume. She slowed near the porch, let her voice drip like spoiled milk. Girl like that shouldn't sit where decent folks pass. Ain't no dignity left in her bones. I've seen that kind of cruelty before. The kind that doesn't need to raise its voice to draw blood. Maybe you have too. The kind that says more about the speaker than the one it's aimed at. June didn't move, didn't answer. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's armor. The next day, it got meaner. 3 boys, barely men, mostly beer and spit, lingered by the fence. At first just laughing too loud, leaning too close. One tossed an apple core. It hit the dirt by her foot. She didn't flinch. The second muttered something about broken toys being easy to borrow. The third brushed his fingers against her skirt, pretending to trip. That's when Elias stepped out from behind the forge. He didn't shout, didn't threaten, just looked at them. Long, slow, steady. The way a man might look at wolves he's already fought once before. And they left. Not running, but not walking proud either. That night a red ribbon appeared on the fence post outside his shop, a small coin tied into the knot. Maybe it was thanks, maybe it was something else. But I think sometimes the loudest gratitude is the kind that doesn't say a word. And in Jericho Creek, a ribbon could mean more than a speech ever would.
Sunday in Jericho Creek always carried a strange kind of quiet, like the whole town was holding its breath after church. That afternoon, June stepped off her porch in the same torn dress she'd worn all week, not because she wanted to, but because it was all she had. She made it 10 steps toward the general store before trouble spotted her. Jack Puller was leaning on the rail, one boot propped up like he owned the whole street. He grinned when he saw her, slow and mean, tipping an imaginary hat. June kept walking. No answer, no eye contact. That should have been the end of it, but Jack stepped down, closed the space between them, his hand clamping around her arm so hard it pulled her half off her feet. "What's the rush, darlin'? Thought you liked attention." The slap came next, his, not hers, snapping the air before the sound even faded. She hit the dirt, dust rising around her, and for a heartbeat nobody moved. Maybe you've seen that before, that awful pause where a whole crowd chooses to stay still. Then Elias came out of the blacksmith shop, not walking, but marching, each step hitting the ground like it might crack. He didn't ask questions, didn't raise his voice, just drove his fist into Jack's jaw, dropped him where he stood. Then he hauled him up by the shirt, shoved him hard into the post, and leaned in close.
"You touch her again," he said, voice low enough to chill the bone. "I'll bury your hand behind the barn." Jack limped off without a word. That night, a ribbon appeared on Elias's forge table, burned at one end, tied into a neat bow. After that, folks started talking, not about what June had been through, but about the man who stepped in like it was the only thing in town that still made sense. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the story people tell.
The day after the fight, June didn't come out. No porch, no ribbons, no sign she'd even opened her door. Elias didn't knock. He just left a small plate by the steps, 2 slices of cornbread, a boiled egg, and a folded napkin with her name stitched in the corner. June. Simple. Honest. By morning, the plate was gone. In its place sat a single white button, worn smooth from use. Not worth a dime, but maybe worth something else. I've always believed little things like that can speak louder than the grand gestures, the kind of language you only learn when trust is something you have to earn, inch by inch. That evening, when the sun dipped low and the forge cooled, she was there again, this time closer, close enough that the space between them wasn't a wall anymore. They didn't talk, they didn't need to. He sat beside her, the boards creaking under their weight, the smell of metal and dust still clinging to his shirt. And then she did it, just leaned her head against his shoulder. Not heavy, not desperate, just there. He didn't flinch, didn't shift away. His hand found hers, and they sat like that until the sky turned the color of cooling embers. I wonder if you've ever had a moment like that. A moment where you realize safety isn't always loud. It's not fireworks or speeches. Sometimes it's just the steady weight of someone who stays. That night, June closed her eyes without bracing for what might come next. And in Jericho Creek, that was its own kind of miracle. Because what they were building wasn't about fixing the past. It was about surviving the present, together, in the only way they knew how, quietly.
I keep thinking about that porch in Jericho Creek, the way the boards creaked under 2 pairs of worn boots, the way the evening air wrapped around them like a blanket no one else could touch. And it makes me wonder, what does it really take for a broken person to feel whole again? Is it justice? Is it kindness? Or is it simply someone who doesn't look away when it hurts? I've seen people try to fix others with big speeches, grand promises, even the idea that a happy ending can erase what came before. But the truth? Not every story needs a wedding or a kiss in the rain. Sometimes, the real miracle is quieter. It's a porch that doesn't ask questions, a chair that's always there, the sound of another person breathing beside you, steady and unshaken. I remember once, years ago, sitting beside a friend who'd lost more than she could put into words. We didn't talk for hours, just sat, watching shadows stretch across the ground. Later, she told me that was the first time in months she'd felt safe enough to let her shoulders drop. It wasn't what I said, it was that I stayed. That's what I see in Elias and June. 2 people who understood that presence can be more powerful than any cure. That sometimes the smallest act, showing up day after day, can speak louder than any declaration. So maybe that's the question I'll leave with you. Have you ever met someone like Elias, or been someone like June? Someone who didn't need saving, just needed to know they weren't alone in the fire. If you have, you know, there's nothing small about that kind of love. It can hold a life together, one quiet evening at a time.